We are continuing our study of Hebrews chapter 12. As you know, Hebrews was written to the first century Christians who converted from Judaism. They were the first Jewish people that converted to Christianity. And they were being persecuted by their friends, their family, even their government was against them. They were being persecuted. They were going through difficult times, financially, relationally, socially, in many different ways. They were going through difficulties. And as a result, some of them were under pressure to convert back to Judaism. And some of them were thinking about this. And there were these false teachers that were coming into the church and telling them, you have to go back to Judaism. You need to be circumcised and you have to follow the law of Moses. And the book of Hebrews was written to a group of people that were being pressured to give up their faith. In that way, you might relate to them. Because you're living in a world right now, you are being pressured to give up your faith. We are not born into faith. Faith is something we make a decision to have. We step into faith. We are not born into it. We make a decision to follow Jesus. That's when we become Christians. This decision cannot be made by somebody else on my behalf. My mother, my father cannot say, my son is a Christian. No, I have to choose to be a Christian. I have to make a decision to be a Christian. Christian means Christ follower. Christian does not mean a person that goes to church on Sunday and wears a cross on his chain. Christian does not mean you're a person that says a certain prayer, usually Our Father. Christian is not a person that makes a sign of the cross. Christian is not a person in different countries who on their ID, under the section of religion, says Christian. Christianity is a choice we all must make. Christianity is a choice we all must make. And that needs to be done consciously. That needs to be done willingly. That needs to be done knowingly. That needs to be done willingly. Who am I hearing here? Can you guys turn it off if you're not on? Okay. So they were under pressure. We started looking at the book. We came to chapter 12, and we made it as far as verse 18. Today, we're going to pick up from verse 18 to see what it says. If you have your Bibles with you, follow along. Verse 18 says, "You have not come to a mountain that can be touched, and to a blazing fire, and to darkness and gloom and whirlwind." What is he talking about? Now, the writer of Hebrews at this point is going to start comparing two mountains. One is the mountain called Sinai. Mount Sinai was the mountain that God descended onto. And he's going to compare it with Mount Zion, which is going to represent Jesus and Christianity. Now, first he takes Mount Sinai. If you read Exodus chapter 19, you will see this encounter. What happened is God saved the Israelites from Egyptian bondage. He made them his people. They witnessed a bunch of miracles, and he collected them. He said, I'm going to give the rules to relate to me by. So he chose Moses, and Moses was the spokesperson for God to the group of Israelites. God told them, you're going to go up to this mountain and I will meet with you there. When he went up to the mountain, it was a terrifying sight. It was scary. Look at the words that I used. Burning with fire, darkness, gloom, and storm. God is doing something here. He's communicating something to the Israelites. He says, even if an animal touches that mountain, it will be killed. Why? What does the poor animal have to do with it? Well, the animal is unclean. You cannot come to me, God is saying. You cannot come to me unless you are clean. But immediately after that, we're told, none of us are clean. You see, that's when Christianity begins. Once we realize we are not good enough. Once we realize that we are not perfect. God says, unless you're perfect, you will be judged. You will be burned under that fire. God is holy. If you want to be with God, you have to be holy. None of us are holy. Not one. None of you are good enough. I am not good enough. There isn't a single person that was ever born on the face of the earth other than Jesus Christ himself is good enough. We are all sinners. That's why we cannot touch even the mountain. We will be burned. That's how severe sin is. That's how severe being away from God is. Sin is nothing to take lightly. Severe consequences for sin. For you do not come to a mountain that can be touched, to a blazing fire, darkness, gloom, and storm. The fire represented God's judgment. Mount Sinai was covered with smoke because God descended on it in fire. You know, when you go up to that mountain today, you will see that the whole mountain was burnt. Did you know that? It's still there. Christianity is not a fable. It's not a made-up story. It's not a bunch of little stories put together. It's real. It's history. The terms that are described, darkness, gloom, storm, it's fearful, it's dark, it's mysterious. It shows God's overwhelming power. It was a scary scene to be even watching that mountain. They were scared. There's fire, there's smoke, there's this thundering voice that they said, oh, we can't hear it anymore. Verse 19, to a trumpet blast, or such a voice speaking with words that those who heard it begged that no further word would be spoken to them. Trumpet blast is a symbol. Whenever in the Old Testament a prophet was going to say something from God, when God was present, trumpet blast would happen. He's like, hey, pay attention. Something important is being said here. God's voice was so powerful and terrifying that the Israelites could not bear to hear it. They begged. They covered their ears. They said, no more. We can't hear this voice anymore. It shows their recognition of their ability to withstand the holiness of God. The fear and respect that we must show God. In our post-Christian age, we tend to only speak of grace, only speak of love, and sometimes forget the severity, the punishment it took for Jesus to accept us. We take sin lightly. We flirt with it. We dance with it. We play around it. We come near it. Or if we sin, we say, it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. If you're a child of God, it's even a bigger deal for you. Because they could not bear what was commanded. Even if an animal touches the mountain, it must be stoned to death. This reflects the severity and impossibility of adhering perfectly to the law. Nobody could adhere to the law perfectly. God gave them a list of things that they had to do. They knew that they wouldn't be able to keep it. They didn't want to hear it. That's a very human reaction. When we find ourselves in a situation that we don't want to be in, we tend to reject it. We pretend like we didn't hear it. We pretend like it doesn't apply to us. We pretend like it's not going to change my life. You see, when it comes to sin and forgiveness, the effects are not immediate, but the effects are eternal. See, there is a line. Once we cross it, there is no turning back. On this side of the line, we can pretend like it doesn't exist. It's not going to happen to us. Well, nobody's seen it and all that stuff. But once we pass that line, once we give out our last breath on this earth, we will be before the judge. At that point, was I a follower of Jesus who was forgiven? Or was I a good person, a nice person? I lived like everybody else. I didn't hurt anybody, right? Not one of you will say, I'm a bad person. And you're probably not a bad person. You're probably very nice. You probably do a lot of good things to a lot of people. Maybe you feel very good inside towards other people. My question to you, and this is the question, this is the standard that God has. Are you perfect in front of God? If you're not, we're going to face judgment. And that judgment is not a temporary prison sentence. It's eternal, forever separation from God. Forever separated from God. More popular word for it is hell. Are you perfect? None of us are. Then the question is, are you forgiven? You see, that's the key. Christian is not a perfect person. Christian is a forgiven person. If there's any Christians among you that think that they should act perfect, well, you're a hypocrite because you're not perfect. So stop trying to look like you're perfect. Because God knows you're not perfect. And let me tell you, that's one of the biggest stumbling blocks to unbelievers to come to faith. Christians acting like they're perfect. None of us are perfect. None of us are perfect. But man, we have to keep getting better and better at this thing called life, don't we? Coming back to our verse. For they could not bear to command, even a beast touches the mountain, it will be stoned. And so terrible was the sight that Moses said, I am full of fear and trembling. Moses, who was face to face with God all the time, even he was scared. The reality of God's awesome power and judgment. We should be scared. We should not take sin lightly. We should not flirt with it, dance with it. We shouldn't say, let me get close to it as much as possible, but I won't touch it. That's what Eve did. Don't make the same mistake. Don't flirt with sin. Don't flirt with the world. Stay as far away as possible from it. Don't go near it. Do not be afraid to look different, act different than the world, because you're called to be different. You're called to be Christ followers. You are Christians. You're supposed to act different. You're supposed to think different. You're supposed to dress different. You're supposed to talk different. You're different. You're set apart. You're not like everybody else. You're not supposed to be like everybody else. You're supposed to be Christ followers, Jesus followers. When the world goes this way, you're supposed to go that way. And everybody's supposed to say, what's wrong with her? Why is she not doing this? Why isn't she doing that? What's wrong with him? Why is he acting this way? Why is he running his business that way? How come he doesn't hang out with us in the bars and clubs? You're supposed to be different. The Israelites that were being persecuted, that this book is written to, they were being pressured because they were being different. Don't be afraid to be different because you're a Christian. What do you mean you don't have an Instagram page? Well, I don't care. Can you say it? I don't have a Facebook page. I don't have a Snapchat page. Can you say all that? Why? There's this pressure on all of us. Now, we talked about fear of missing out, right? Years back. FOMO. My goodness, I'm going to miss out on something. There is nothing you're going to miss out on other than what God has for you. You're going to miss out on God's best if you keep following the world. If you want to dress like the world, live like the world, if you want to act like the world, if your goal and your definition of success is dictated by what you see online and on TV, on people around you, I am sorry, you are going to be disappointed. You are going to waste your life, your youth, your vigor, your energy on things that are not good and temporary. What matters, what counts, is to do what the Lord told us to do. I was watching a documentary about Johnny Cash. Does anybody know who Johnny Cash is? Raise your hand. Wow. Well, I just dated myself, I guess. Johnny Cash, like 6,000 years ago, he was born into a poor cotton-picking family. His best friend was his brother. He was an older brother. He was going to be a preacher. He was going to be a pastor. He was a hard worker. But at a very early age, he died he was 12 years old. He was working a lumber mill. And he died because of an accident. And this devastated the family and Johnny himself. And afterwards, even though they were all in faith, as he started singing, he fell away from his faith. He started doing drugs. Let me tell you guys about drugs, if you don't already know. It's one of those things in life you should never even try. Because once you try, 7 out of 10 people will be hooked at it. Do you really want to take a chance that you're in that 30%? And once he tried, he got hooked. And that ruined his life for the rest of his life. Not only he walked away from it, his faith, he ruined his marriages. He ruined his children's lives. He ruined the people's around him. By God's mercy, he reached out to him later on. He came back to his faith. He rededicated his life. But the very last song he wrote, right before he died, in his lyrics, he was talking about how much torment he was in because of everybody he hurt. He was a wealthy man by the end of his time. He said, "You could have it all, my empire of dirt." I love the way he put it. You can have it all, my empire, because he had built an empire of dirt. What's dirt? It's dust. It's not going to stand. You can't make anything with it. It's not going to fulfill you. It's going to collapse. And at the end of the verse, very end of the song, he said, if I could do it all over again, if I could start all over again, after listing all his disappointments and the people that he hurt, if I could do it all over again, I wouldn't give myself up. You see, he gave himself up to the world. He gave himself up to these standards of the definitions of success that was dictated by other people. He gave himself up to drugs. Once you go into drugs, even if you're clean for a while, it comes back to you unless the Lord intervenes and cleans you 100%. That's always a possibility. But wouldn't life be so much better even if you don't touch it? Even if you never try it? So many examples of ruined lives, hurt people, a trail of distraction. I don't know why I got here, but let's get back to the verse. As terrible as this was the law. But he starts comparing the law with Mount Zion. But, he says, you have come to Mount Zion, to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem and the myriad of angels, to the general assembly of the church, the firstborn of who are enrolled in heaven, and to God, the judge of all, and to the spirits of the righteous made perfect, and to Jesus, the mediator of the new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood, which speaks better than the blood of Abel. But you have come to a dramatic shift in the tone and the picture. Doom and gloom under the law and judgment, But you are different now. You're not under that standard anymore. You've been set free from that. Why? Because you have become a Christian. You have come to Mount Zion. You have come to Jesus Christ. You have become a follower of Jesus. It is a completely different ballgame. You are forgiven. Your name is written in the book of life. You're not going to be forever separated from God. You're going to be forever with Him. Why? Because you're forgiven. Why are you forgiven? Because you realize that you were not perfect. You realize that you had to commit your life to Jesus. You realize that you had to go to Him and say, Father, I am a filthy, wretched sinner. Forgive me. From this point on, I will live the way you want me to. I will do what you want me to do. I will not do what you don't want me to do. I will live the way you want me to. I will be a Christ follower. In other words, whatever Jesus wants me to do, that's what I'm going to do. That's what a Christian is. Follower of Jesus. That's what a Christian is. Someone who does what Jesus says. If you make that decision in your life, not as a baby, babies can't make these kinds of decisions. Not because you were born in a Christian family. No. My kids, I'm a pastor, my kids have to choose to be Christians. Simply because they're born into my family doesn't make them a Christian. They have to make a choice to be Christ followers. They have to understand that they're fallen, sinful human beings. As nice as they are, to me, they're still not perfect. And that's how God looks at us. He doesn't want us to be separated from Him. He doesn't want you burning in hell. He made a way. Jesus came here, took on human flesh. God became man. He was tortured. He was crucified for my sins, so that I could be with Him in eternity. Why does God care about us so much? I don't know. But He loves us. Because He loves us, He made a way to escape that fire. Are you going to take the way to escape that fire? If you have taken the way, are you living up to it? Are you distracted with the world and everything that's happening in it? All the things that are pulling your attention, family, health, work, kids, husband, wife, whatever. Focus on Jesus and what He wants in your life. We are all trying to build an empire of dirt. Let's not get caught up in it. Let's refocus. Let's rededicate our lives to Jesus, to the author and finisher of our faith, so that not only we will have peace on earth, we will be with Him in eternity. I guess we will finish the chapter next week. God bless you.